When a browser visually represents the content, you have the content and you have what's called the cascading style sheet, which gives the styling, the colors, the sizes, the fonts, and so forth. And there you've got two input streams, namely the cascading style sheet and the content, being combined. And that rendering is taking place at the very last moment. And that allows the web page to have a button on it that says, give me the high contrast display, or make the fonts larger, or other adaptabilities for accessibility. Echoing what Jonathan said about a large number of pipelines, I think one of the key things about accessibility is user needs vary. And in fact, our own needs vary. And so the ability at the last moment to change the rendering, I believe, can be quite important. And if you think about it, a magnifier is simply a way of changing the rendering at the last moment dynamically. And the same goes for navigating by voice, using a screen reader and using keyboard controls to move around the page. That's changing the rendering of the document dynamically. I wonder if Kelly would like to say something.
Sure, thanks, Jonathan. I think for me, it's really being able to get at the images and how we can help those with problems reading material to best understand the images and how they want us to do that. So if we're supposed to just include information within the text, or there's this alternative text, and there's just a lot of guidance out there that is conflicting. And I think some of that is because it comes from sighted readers that don't necessarily understand what non-sighted readers need, and then also our limitations in the software to produce what is needed. And so if there was a way forward for even not the whole pipeline, but there's a huge initiative for math equations, but I'd like to see a huge initiative for images as well.
Something I've realized about pipelines is, well, it comes down to this, that sometimes you have to do the document several times. You know, you've got a document, you typeset it, and you find there are accessibility problems and the alternative text isn't quite right. And it can be a real pain if you have to go back to the beginning of the pipeline. And if you can sort of insert a fix in the middle of the pipeline, as Nelson was talking about in debugging, that might be the best way out, particularly if you're in a situation where you can't do it right because you need it tomorrow, because the student needs it. So it's very tempting to make something that's extremely optimized and efficient, but it might not work in all situations. There's a saying in computing that you don't manually edit a generated file. If the file has been generated, you don't manually edit it. And I think that's the right thing to do, but there's nothing to stop you putting a manual edit, putting a description of a manual edit into the pipeline. In other words, when you get to this point, ignore the previous instruction and do this. That's a bit like sort of debugging the document, if you like.